Sally there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the review of Failure or Failure by Farsot. Farsot are a modern black metal or post-metal band, depending on how much you want to split hairs here, from Germany, who released their first full-length album in 2007 and now put out their third album. Now, where to begin with this album? Because I stumbled over a quote-unquote problem with this album I never encountered before. It's not that I didn't like this album, but I also really didn't love it either. Sure, what I heard was not bad, but never before have I felt this indifferent about an album I was about to review. Usually at least one or two songs turn into earworms for me. Over the course of listening to the album I get favorite tracks and ones that I like less, the normal process. With Failure, however, there was basically nothing. Once I turned off the music, it was basically out of my mind. And even now, after a week of listening to it, I'd be really troubled to name the songs on this disc or recite any of the lyrics. And to be perfectly honest, I have no idea why. I should like what I hear, at least I think so, from the first track called Vitriolic, which starts you off with this eerie ghostly whispers and inaudible voices before throwing you into a thrashing black metal maelstrom, to the ending track called 100 of Nothing, which reminded me more of Agalok. I really should enjoy what I'm hearing here. And by no means would I say that the album is bad. Indeed, it's actually pretty well crafted. The various guitars basically go hand in hand together, playing along or taking over for each other, and the transition is never rough. It just feels very natural when you have this high-pitched guitar in the foreground, and in the background you have a deep strum on a distorted guitar droning on in regular intervals. Especially the riffs on the clean guitar reminded me more often than not of Agalok again. At some points, the songs even start to feel slightly jazzy because the bass takes the lead, which is something I still find worth mentioning and praising a bit, because dozens of metal bands have a bass in their lineup, but it seems many of them don't really utilize it properly because they rather drown it out in guitars and drums and vocals. Not only can you hear the bass on this album occasionally, but at certain points it even takes the lead of the melody. And while this album really doesn't sound like an old school black metal album for the very most part, Farsot sure nailed down the way of repeating riffs over and over and over again until it basically becomes hypnotic and puts you in a sort of trance. You can find a lot of black metal in this album, even though it has been wrapped into a new packaging paper, so to say. It often feels like the band tried to channel other bands, like the aforementioned Agalok, and some pieces even slightly reminded me of Dornreich, but they never really pull it off. It always falls flat, feels basically like a cheap Chinese knockoff instead of the powerful original. And still, I have to go back to what I said before, just nothing of this album stuck with me. While nothing was notably bad, no part of this album was so good it stood out to me either. I really think this was entirely a matter of personal taste, to be perfectly honest here, because for once I looked for reviews of this album before completing my own. I usually stay away from other reviews while I'm still in the process of writing my own, but here I hope to find what others see in this album. And even when someone mentions something positive, I honestly tried and I couldn't find it for myself. On a technical level, this album was fucking excellent. Very well crafted by people who clearly knew what they were doing and how to handle their instruments, who knew how to play it right and how to use the vocal spectrums of their singer perfectly. But the compositions ultimately just felt flat. It lacks any failures, yes, you can punch me for that pun, but it also completely lacks any outstanding moments on the whole disc. So, as a conclusion, listen, I don't know if this album is really just as bland as it felt to me, or if the message and the atmosphere just flew right over my head. If you consider yourself an enlightened fan of Farsot and like this album, please, I beg of you, tell me what you found great about it, because I'm honestly curious. I won't tell anyone who likes post-metal or modern black metal to not listen to this album. I won't, because you might find something you really enjoy on this disc. As I said before, from a technical standpoint, it's really, really well crafted, well produced, nothing to fault the album for here. But as for me, I have already forgotten most of it while typing this. Nothing stuck in my brain. I had to listen to the album repeatedly again while writing the actual script for this review, because it was just so utterly forgettable to me. And comparing it to their prior albums, which I liked, honestly, this was a pretty big disappointment. So if this is your genre, give it a shot. You can listen to a complete legal stream of the album, which I have linked in the description, but maybe lower your expectations a bit. So, I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you did, please leave a like on the video, or if you haven't yet, just subscribe to the channel to get at least one German music review per week. You can also follow Sounds German on Facebook and or Twitter. I do regularly post album streams and music videos, stuff like that on there. As usual, you can find links to album streams or videos of this album I talked about in the description. You can also find shopping links if you're that curious. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day. I hope to see you again soon. Salida.